pleased to introduce Maria today. She's going to talk to us about what the key concepts in education for sustainable development, got right that time, are, and talk about some of the work that she's been doing in collaboration with a number of institutions, including the Open University, my previous institution, the University of Glasgow, the American University of Sharjah, and one of our colleagues in the post-92 sector here in the UK, Anglia Ruskin. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Maria.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you, Melissa. It's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you very much for the invitation. Can you please let me know if you can see my screen? I just shared the presentation.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, Matthew. And just some personal background. I live in the UK. I'm originally from Venezuela. And as you said, I used to work at Imperial College for 10 years there. And I know a lot of you through my years at Imperial and in London. So it's a really great to be here, although I wasn't able to travel there, but I'm here with you today. So as you said, Matthew, I think it's the topics I would like to talk to you today are really topics that don't only affect, one discipline, one area within the university, but it's something that is affecting all of us, and not just the UK, but globally. And it's something that we need to be working together to be able to cope and face all these challenges. Before I proceed with the presentation, I just would like to know a little bit more about who is here today. I saw before I think about 50 of you here. I'm not sure how many there are here, but I'm going to share I'm using the tools in Google to present. So let me see if you can see on the screen the link to the questions. And if I move over to the link, you will be able to see a few of the questions. So if you can click like, if you're an academic, or if you are an educational developer, or a learning technologist, or a student, or if you think of any other profiles, you can easily also add them here, just to see more or less who you are, where you come from. So if you go to that link, this link here on the presentation, and please just click on like if you're an academic and you're also an educational developer. Just choose the one that you think is most relevant.
Here is Christina. Just people ask to put the link in the chat if that's possible.
Oh, sure, yes.
Thank you.
Let me see if I can.
Oh, thank you. Santanu just did it. Thank you, Santanu.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so I'll continue. I'll come back here then while you get on the link and start sharing your profiles. Not for anything specific. I think the point is that we are all on the same boat. So irrespective of where you are within the university, if you are an academic or you're an educational developer or you are a student, we all have to face these challenges. So I just want to know, I'm curious about who you are. I know that some of you have already signed up. Anyway, as Matthew said, I think I'm not going to say too much about me because I think Matthew already told you about myself, and it's a real honor to be here with you today, especially I think because I'm not there with you physically, but my links with London and all the universities in London has always been very strong. So I just want to share with you some of these slides, which are really showing the challenges that we are facing today. As we can see here, poverty is obviously one of them, We can see deforestation happening everywhere. We can see pollution, we can see floods, and we can see wildfires. Things that we are very familiar with. We've been affected by that recently. In the UK, not long ago, as you can see here, we reached 40 degrees, and that was something that we've never experienced before. So it's signs coming up that, you know, something is happening and we need to act. We can see how not only in the UK, but as you can see there, all around Europe, we saw really temperatures going really, really high. And probably you were in one of those places, probably you, I don't know how many of you are here in the UK, but we all felt the effects of climate change. I want to show you briefly here. This is this video, which was quite moving. I think it's very scary to see how this is happening just very, very close to us. Can you hear the sound?
No, no.
Okay, let me just check something here.
Region of Gironde have been stabilized after having destroyed thousands of hectares of land.
Can you hear it now? Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
Across Europe are in a race against time to protect people and their homes. In France, 2 fires around the town of La Teste-de-Bouche in the southwest region of Gironde have been stabilized after having destroyed thousands of hectares of land.
We've managed to contain the fire. We're making it go where we want it to go while protecting people and their properties. Thankfully, these 2 objectives have been achieved.
Forest fire prevention teams have had to cut down trees for a fire break.
We are cutting down the trees so that if the fire arrives, there will be less combustible mass, which means a less powerful fire and a support zone for firemen to circulate better.
In Spain, dozens of fires burn across the country as temperatures push well into the mid-40s.
It's only making it more difficult to extinguish the fire. This area, which is green and cool in summer, is becoming very hot like the south. Climate change affects everyone.
The heat wave has caused hundreds of deaths, with thousands of people forced to evacuate their homes.
We are doing very badly. We are all very stressed. I live over there where the terrace is. I had to leave and come here because I felt like the helicopters were on top of me.
Some are seeking refuge in makeshift shelters.
I didn't take it too seriously. I thought they had it under control, and I was quite surprised whenever it seemed to be moving our direction, and then we were told to go. So, no, we've left a lot of stuff behind.
Others' homes have burned to the ground.
I'm hurt. My sister-in-law and my wife have a farm that has burned.
The family farm has burned, all of it.
Yes, the whole thing. It is what it is.
In Greece, a group of German firemen have arrived to support emergency teams there, with hundreds more from across Europe expected to join the fight. Much of the heat wave engulfing Europe comes from north across Europe are in a race against.
Right, I'm going to stop it there. So I'm sure that some of you saw that in the news, and it's so close to us. All the things happening here in the UK, in Europe, is something that we used to see quite far away, probably. It's something that probably, I'm sure some of you, it made you reflect on where we are and probably, hopefully, what we need to do about it. I think that's the main thing. And my hope with my talk today is really to tell you a little bit more about, not just about education for sustainable development, not just about what you can do within your curriculum and within the university, but also is for you to reflect on how you can change also your behavior, how this is affecting you personally and how you can do something about it. It's something that is not just about the university, about your profession or about, the work environment. It's about our actions. And hopefully that's my aim anyway with the talk.
Firefighters.
very, very close also, obviously after all the wildfires, we can see now the floods in Pakistan, which is really scary as well. So we can see the knock-on effect on so many things, and it's affecting everyone globally. So, but just to think a little bit about, when we think about climate change and we think about how we can help and we can fight climate change, I wonder, do we know how we can do it? I think we all talk about CO2 emissions, and we think straight away about petrol and how much you're driving, or probably energy-related emissions. But what else can we do about it? So I thought I would probably put together a few slides, and this area obviously is not my area of expertise, but I'll show you after these few slides where this information is coming from, which is a little book that has been published by 2 students in Germany. And they explain, let me show you here on the screen, this little book is beautiful. It's all infographics about showing you the effects of climate change. And these help me really identify key facts that really made sense and help me really realize what we can do about it. So when we talk about natural greenhouse gases, what are they? So we can see here, they are all of those listed there. And we can see obviously oxygen, we can see nitrogen, and we can see greenhouse gases. And those are really tiny there. So you can see 0.04, that's the green line of the greenhouse gases. So those are the gases that are really going high and are affecting our temperature globally. However, what happens with the greenhouse effect? So as you can see there, it is not a picture coming from the book. I replicated what they explain, which I think is really interesting. So you can see at the top, if we didn't have those gases, the radiation would be coming to Earth and then would go back again into the atmosphere, and we would probably freeze here. What those gases are doing is they are keeping our temperature on Earth. So we can see there all the little O2, CO2, and so on. They are good. They are keeping us warm and toasty here on Earth. But if we increment, if any of those go too high, obviously the temperature goes high. And probably, as you can see them there, probably, I don't know how many you can identify, probably CO2, that's the one that we normally talk about in terms of climate change. But what are the gases that really will make a difference? Or what are the gases that we can affect with our ways of living? So those gases that we produce are called anthropogenic greenhouse gases. And those are CO2, probably all of you know about CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide. So those are the gases that are part of those at the top. As you can see, they are good because they keep us warm. But what happens when our actions, what we are doing, what we are consuming, what we are producing, what we are buying, they are obviously having an effect on those, what they call anthropogenic greenhouse gases. Let me just go to the slides just to see how we are doing. Okay, so I can see we have 17 academics so far, 15 educational developers, 4 learning technologists, and 4 students. And someone put educational advisor and developer and learning technologies, and 1 librarian. Great, thank you. Brilliant. Okay, so I was saying about the anthropogenic greenhouse gases. So those are the gases that we have an impact on. Now, I thought this is really good. When I read the book, this made me really realize, okay, but how can I impact those gases? So as you can see here, very briefly, you have CO2 on the left, you have CH4, and you have N2O. So carbon dioxide on the left, it's mainly coming from fossil fuels, as we know. So coal, petroleum, natural gas. So if we are thinking about driving the cars, as you know, I think I don't need to tell you anything about this. I'm sure you all know the effects of all energy consumption. So this is one of the areas where we will have an effect on those gases if we are driving our cars, if we are not thinking about energy and these kind of emissions. The one in the middle is methane emissions. So this, as you can see, a lot of different percentages there. Fossil fuels is one of them, 29%. Livestock farming is one of the biggest one as well. So if we eat meat, those emissions are going to go high because a lot of that is related to livestock farming. Landfill sites, we have rice cultivation and biomass, biofuel, also 10%. And if we have the last one is nitrous oxide, which is 59% agriculture. So a lot of that related to farming, 10% biomass, biofuel, so wildfires, for example, fossil fuel and industry, rivers and others. Those are the percentages on nitrous oxide. And it's interesting to see the impact of each of them. So what happens here? From all of those, the ones that are really going very, very high, CO2, because that's the one that we are consuming. Our energy is based on these really bad energy resources, and that's why CO2 is going really high. But the impact here, what they call the global warming potential, you can see for one element of CO2, methane has a potential of 28 times that, the same amount of CO2. And nitrous oxide has a power of 265. So that means that for one element, 1 gram of CO2, is 100 years. So this is measuring 100 years. For 100 years of one element of CO2, you multiply that for 28 if you're talking about methane or if you're talking about nitrous oxide. So what means is obviously the impact of methane and the other one, nitrous oxide, is much, much higher. So it makes us think and realize the effect of, when we are thinking about, for example, eating meat, when we think about the burning wood, for example, that goes into the 265 range. So by just telling you this, I think I'm hoping that somehow it's giving you a little bit, probably some of you already know this very well if you come from, this is not my area of expertise, but I thought I wanted to share with you these basic facts that made me realize a little bit more about the effect of my way of living and my act in relation to consumption, in relation to buying, producing, and everything. And this is a little book that I told you about. This is the one that has all these wonderful infographics, and they explain everything really, really well. They are two students from economics in Germany, and they were determined to produce something that explained the effects of climate change in a very easy way, and I think they did an amazing job. I think they have a new book, and they produce everything ecologically, the ink, the print, everything. It's really, really interesting. Right, okay, so this is a little bit about what we can do, hopefully, by just realizing the facts about what's happening up there. Why is the planet getting warmer? And what am I doing to increase that? Hopefully that will give you a little bit of a taste. Now, let's talk about now in terms of education, how can we then embed this thinking in our curriculum? So let's start talking about education for sustainable development. So this is, I wanted to talk to you about this. This is coming from one of the UNESCO's reports, Land for our Planet. And they say 1 million species are at risk of extinction. We use more resources than the planet can generate each year. If we continue to live the way we do today, we will need 3 Earths by 2050. The way we currently live is not sustainable. Urgent change is needed, but lasting change is impossible without education. And as you know, you are in education. I think it's not difficult to talk to you about this because we are all in this sector. So education is really important to really empower our students to make changes. It's not just about knowing the facts that we just shared. It's about having those competencies that will give you agency to really act and do something about it. So obviously we need to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. And the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, adopted by all the UN states in 2015, they shared this blueprint, and these are 17 development goals. Let me just show you this one, which is a bit bigger. So in here, you can see that 70 development goals. I think probably most of you know about SDG 4, which is quality education. And we tend to think we are in academia, we only need to care about SDG 4, which is quality of education. The issue is that, they're all interrelated. So we need to be thinking that it's not just education. Education has links to poverty, links to health, links to climate action and everything else. We can see, for example, the pandemic is one example that if you say, well, where would you place the pandemic within the SDGs? You probably go with health, which is SDG 3. But really, the pandemic hit everything. As we know, education was obviously one of the areas that, as you probably lived the problems trying to deliver all your education online and getting ready and so on and so forth. Gender equality, we saw in developing countries, obviously major gaps in gender, poverty, obviously, etc. All of them, all of the SDGs were very much affected by the pandemic. They are all interrelated. So education for sustainable development, this is just a definition coming from UNESCO. Education for sustainable development empowers learners of all ages with the knowledge, skills and values and attitudes to address the interconnected global challenges we are facing. So when we're talking global challenges, we can see the SDGs that I presented previously that affect everything. And they're global. They're not just about here, the UK. It's something that we can see with the pandemic. It wasn't just one country. We had to work globally to target the issue. Education should be transformative and allow us to make informed decisions and take individual and collective action to change our societies and care for the planet. So it's not about learning about climate change, about all these facts that we just discussed, but it's also giving the students the opportunity to develop the skills and the attitudes they need to face these challenges and to be proactive and have agency to make changes and take action. But how do we do it? Okay, that's been the issue. A lot of things have been happening for several years. How do we really get to that? How can we explain the academics? Well, how can you embed in your curriculum ways of developing these competencies in your students? And that's where we are going now. I'm going to present to you the framework that we developed, and it's been co-designed. It's called Education for Sustainable Development. And it's been, we've been working on this really a lot in combination with several institutions, as you can see there. And Matthew mentioned that previously with the American University of Sharjah, the Open University, with UNESCO, ESALC, with Anglia Ruskin University as well. So what is the framework doing? The framework is bringing together all the things that are already there in the literature, but it's trying to create something systematic and easy to implement in curriculum design. So as you can see there are three main pillars of the framework. At the top, we have key competencies for sustainability. These competencies are all already identified by UNESCO. and they were classified by UK, the framework, UK UPSS, ways of thinking, ways of practicing, and ways of being. And we can see all the different codes. I'll show you now what they mean. So key competencies for sustainability, they are the competencies that we need to embed, we need to develop, our students need to develop to be able to face the challenges and take action. And I'll show you in a minute what they mean. We have also, the second pillar is about the specific learning objectives for the SDGs. That's how it's called in the UNESCO report. And they refer to three main things. And this, as you can see there, is the brain, the heart, and the hand. So basically, when you are introducing education for sustainable development, you need to develop the cognitive skills in your students, but you need to also connect with their hearts. They need to feel this, because otherwise they won't be able to take action. And the action is basically led by the hand. So this is really, really important that you connect not just the cognitive side, not just the knowledge, but you connect the heart and you connect the hand for the actions. And the third pillar is the transformative pedagogic and teaching methods, because you need pedagogic methods that are going to be that are going to drive that change. So we cannot rely on passive learning. That's why we need transformative pedagogies to be able to engage the heart, the hand, and the hand. So the framework has different steps, and this is all freely available. This is available on Creative Commons license. You can download the cards, so they are all like this. You can download them with all the steps. And the first step will introduce the SDGs. I already told you about the SDGs. The second step will talk about the key competencies for sustainability that I mentioned. And here you can see more detail, the different competencies that all the codes that we develop the codes for the framework, and we classify them as is being developed by Advanced HE and the new publication they had with QAA, ways of thinking, ways of practicing, and ways of being, as you can see there. So ways of thinking, it relates to all these competencies related to critical thinking, future thinking, system thinking. Some of those are we already do that in our curriculums when we talk about professional skills and so on. Ways of practicing, strategic competence, collaboration, problem integration, integrated problem solving skills, and ways of being, self-awareness competency, and normative competency. So all these competencies are really key to really make your students develop this way of acting and changing perceptions and act in favor of these challenges that we are facing. Step 3 is about the specific learning objectives. So they relate to the 3 domains. So we see the cognitive domain, the socio-emotional domain, and the behavioral domain. And this is published in the literature. Sipos et al. They talk about the 3, the heart, the hand, and the brain, that they are needed to be able to connect and make changes. And this is something that we are bringing from the Open University. We are borrowing from them. It's the learning descriptors. So this is helping us then identify the design of our curriculum, where we have different learning types that will help us design transformative pedagogies and see the balance of our curriculum design. So we have color-coded, assimilative, finding and handling information, communicative, productive, practice, and assessment. So by having that, we can assess the balance of our design when we are delivering our curriculum, and that will help us see where we are going in terms of passive learning or active learning. And also we map all the different examples that I'll show you now to the UK PSF framework. This is the old one. I know that there is a review going on at the moment. So, and then step 5 is the key pedagogical approaches and teaching methods. So we give them advice on how you can introduce different pedagogic and teaching methods, and then you analyze the learning at the end. So this is all available on the website if you're interested. The case studies, so based on the framework, we've been developing different case studies. The case studies are basically a A4 page folded like this. And this is really interesting because you consolidate in one card all the different pillars of the framework. So you can see here an example from the University of Glasgow. And on the right-hand side, you have all the description, a brief summary of the activity. And then on the left-hand side here, you can see all the SDGs that we are targeting in this example, SDGs 9, 11, and 12. We are targeting the 3 domains. That's the aim, that every activity will be targeting the 3 domains. We can see that we are targeting different competencies, as you can see, KC2 and so on. We are targeting 3 different learning activity types from the OU, as I said before, is practice, production, and handling information. And we can also see the UK PSF domains also mapped to this example. At the back of the card, if you turn around the card, you will have then more information about how this activity was implemented. So you can see on the left the learning objectives for the activity and how they map the brain, the heart, and the hand. So you can see the different learning objective mapping that. And you can see the SDGs, how they relate to the SDGs, and what kind of learning practices you introduce, and the assessment. So these are really good. They are all, some of them are available on our website. You have the link there. I'm sure we'll share with you the presentation later. You have the website there where you can have different examples. We also developed the toolkit, the co-design CSD toolkit planner, which is a document that we developed where the teams can design their modules or their units, and we produce really interesting dashboards that provide a lot of feedback about the number of SDGs embedded during the design, the competencies, the learning activity types, and so on. And this is something that we've been using in our boot camps. So very briefly, I think I'm not sure how we are doing with time. I'm going to take you through very briefly how we are putting that framework into practice. So we set up a boot camp. We've been running boot camps for a few years now, but this is the first boot camp that where we embedded education for sustainable development. This is the first boot camp that we have using embedding obviously the new co-design CSD, and we had 2 teams. This is the English team. We had different hosts. This year we had basically all the leads that we have in the framework. And we had different teams from different universities, as you can see there. And as you can see on the map, we were targeting different places around the world. So we had a team from Australia. We had a team from several teams from the UK. We had a team from Hong Kong. We had a team from Spain, and so on. So it's been a really, really interesting experience. The same bootcamp was running in parallel in Spanish, and this was hosted by UNESCO ESALC. We have more teams for the Spanish one, and you can see that we were basically targeting nearly all South and Central America, and also we had a team from Spain. We had, as you can see, they're very, very small pictures, but we had mentors from different places around the world, as you can see there. All the mentors were trained last year before we started the bootcamp, and they were ready to engage with the activity of the bootcamp once we launch both of them. We had within the committee, we had a lot of people, probably some of you are here, or colleagues of the people that we were working with. different universities around London, obviously, and around the UK. They were helping us set up the bootcamp. The bootcamp basically is about an 8-week program, and you can see here how we kick off in March. We had workshops in between, and we had the final presentation or the pitch where the teams came and presented their work. The work was based on the framework, on the co-design framework, and they were presenting the designs they did using the planner. So it was very interesting to see all the dashboards that they produced and the reflections on how the design came about. And the course was hosted on the UNESCO platform, on the UNESCO ESL platform, and the mentors were with each of the teams throughout the process. The teams, it was very interesting, the teams were, we had an academic lead, then we had an educational developer or a learning technologist working within the team, and we had a student as well. And it was a very, very interesting experience. And this is the platform where we hosted the course. And the module leads, we had Victoria Tate from Anglia Ruskin University as module lead for module 1. We had Dr. Vicky Dale and Dr. Natalie Tesler from Glasgow leading module 2, which was related to transformative pedagogies. Module 1 was about sustainability with Victoria, and I was leading module 3 related to the framework. And very briefly, this is how the modules were structured, with assignments and the coaching throughout, and the final presentation at the end. The teams, the best team in Spanish and English received an award, and you can see there the picture. The award was actually produced by local artists in Malawi. I was doing some work for UNICEF Malawi at the time, and I took the opportunity to approach some of the local artists, and they, as you can see there, they created the awards in wood, and they were very pleased to be working and helping us. So as you can see, the impact of the bootcamp, we had in total 42 teams. We had 140 participants with 60 mentors from all around the world, as you can see there on the map. And we had, as you can see, the budget. We didn't have any funding to do this. Everything was run by volunteers, which is amazing. And I'm so grateful to everyone that helped us achieve this. So after that, we decided to set up the Association for Learning Design and Education for Sustainable Development, which is recently, it's been set up in the UK. And the advisory board, as you can see there, several people, probably familiar faces, as you can see, Santanu is one of them. And we are working towards producing a certified mentorship, so people can become mentors and they can have membership with the association. We are offering the toolkit planner, which is not open source. That's the only product that we are selling, and at the moment, Manchester Metropolitan University is planning to roll out the toolkit across the university. We are working with them. The upcoming courses, so we have obviously the 4-week course, which is the short version of the course, and also the bootcamp that is the longer version, because we have the mentorship. I think that's nearly the end of my presentation. And what I'm going to show you here now, I just left this slide here just in case we had time. But probably I think we are nearly on time now. And I don't know, Melissa.
Yeah, we still have 15 more minutes, so we can take some questions. But yeah, you can take a couple more minutes if you want to show us whatever you're planning on showing us. That's fine.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Right, so I wanted to, if I had time, but probably we can wait and see what kind of questions you have. This is really interesting. It's linking to your footprint, carbon footprint. So if you go on that website, you can very easily answer a few questions, and then that will tell you your carbon footprint. it's really interesting if you are, some people use this in the bootcamp when they are trying to talk to the students and see what kind of behaviors they have and how you can approach the topic. It's really interesting. It's very user friendly. It's available in different languages, and I would encourage you to have a look. And I hope that this makes you reflect and think a little bit about your footprint. So I think that's all I wanted to say today. A big thank you, Melissa, Matthew, and everyone at UEL for the invitation. I really hope that what I've said today resonates with all of you. This is something that is affecting all of us. This is something we need to act now, because we don't have any choices. I think it's if we are not really careful, we need to make changes, and we need to think about our children, our grandchildren, our planet, and this is the time. We need to act now. So thank you very much again, and I'm open to questions. Over to you, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Gracias, Maria, por haber venido. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, albeit online and not in person. There's been quite a lot of activity in the chat, lots of people sharing resources, and so on. I'm not sure if I can see any questions, but otherwise, can you please unmute your mics and raise your hands and ask away? Just sifting through the chat to see if I can see any question.
Hello, Maria.
Hello.
Hello, my name's Mushrat. I am going to deliver in January a session on sustainability in healthcare and education, and my students are occupational therapy students, and I know we've got a special interest group within our professional body, but I still find it hard to grab the students, to make it matter to them, for them to not just think about it, but to think about behavioral changes. Is there any advice you can send my way?
Right. Well, thank you for your comments and question. Yes, I think the main thing, what we do when the students go through the bootcamp, this is something we did specific for the bootcamp. We had an exploratory phase to begin with, and we had all the teams using this exploration phase where they had to think about the student as a persona in the middle. So they had to think about, it doesn't matter where, it could be, we had teams in different disciplines. And we had an example of someone learning, for example, a manager of health and safety, in the middle. So there were students of health and safety. And they had to think about how they were linking, what effect they were going to have with the SDGs at the end as a profession. So if you think about your, did you say occupational therapy? Sorry, I think that was...
Yes, occupational therapy, not health. We're different from
yes,
occupational health.
Yes. So occupational. So in your case, you would. It was very effective to really bring the student persona in the middle, and let them think about. Obviously, introduce the SDGs, and let them think about what kind of professional experiences they're going to have in the future. So that as a occupational therapist, they're going to be probably in charge of. Probably not just the physical occupation, occupational therapy, the actual. I don't know exactly what how they would do the practice, but sometimes you have people working in charge of budgets, in charge of purchasing equipment, as simple as, all of us in any profession, we need to be acquiring equipment, or we need to be looking for providers or anything. Just the fact that you think about where is it coming from? Whatever you are buying, you need to be thinking about, the circular economy, where anything that you are related to, how that's going to be replaced, where is that coming from, what effect that is that having on the environment. So think about the student persona, and then make that link between their practice and the SDGs. So if you say that person is going to be in charge of the budget of the occupational therapy department, that budget needs to be obviously going through procurement, and you will need to make decisions about how you spend your money on X, Y, Z. I don't know what kind of equipment, but you need to think about who are you buying from? Where is that produced? How is that getting here? That's all part of the cycle, and that cycle is going to have an impact on different SDGs, and finally on the environment. So that's my advice.
That's really good. I like the equipment angle. I can link with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a question in the chat from Katie. When you were talking about the competencies. So Katie's asking if we are developing these competencies in our students or in ourselves, or both.
Right. Well, that's a really good question. Yes, I was referring to the students. That's competence system thinking, future thinking. But as I said at the beginning of the talk, this is education for sustainable development. It's not when we're talking about experts in engineering, experts in medical education, or we have to be experts in education for sustainable development. And by that, we mean we don't need to know all the facts. We don't need to know all the scientific evidence, but we need to connect the heart, the hand, and the hands. And for this, if you are a teacher, any educator needs to connect with the three things. You cannot just go and provide the facts for the students. You need to feel that, because this is affecting you as much as your students, as much as your children, as much as everybody else. So you need to also develop, if you don't have that, you need to also think about how would you develop that competency of future thinking, that we normally don't do that. We normally don't think about, I'm buying X, Y, or any product, and think about, where is this coming from? Who made this? What kind of materials they used in this piece of garment, or anything that you are consuming. And this is a subject that applies to everyone, because we all need to change. We all need those competencies. So that's a really good question. And I think, how would you then, who would teach you? You are an educator. Who would teach you? I think that's the role of the university, to develop those spaces and communities of practice to support academics in embracing this change. I hope
I guess it's, so I think about it from an inclusive learning perspective, but the crossover is immense. Actually, how can we instill those values in our students if we don't role model them ourselves? I guess is kind of where I'm coming from with that. And how, well, I suppose you can't answer the question, but how we develop those competencies in ourselves is probably harder, but more important than doing it ultimately for our students, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you cannot teach something. In this case, if you teach something, you need to believe in that. You need to feel it, and that's why the heart, the hand, and the brain has to come with. It has to be developed in yourself before you. If you don't know the subject when you're teaching, when you're a really good academic, you see those passionate academics. They know a lot, and when they teach, because they connect with their heart, they love it. The students get it, because it's just so natural. And that's what we need with education for sustainable development. It has to be in you. You need to feel it. You need to say, look, this is it. And but I think it's a really good question. And I think, yeah, it's something that universities have to embrace. That behavioral change in academics has to be part of their profession. Thank you, Katie. It's good to see you.
Thank you. There was a question from Sammy, but I think that was answered in the chat, whether the framework was aligned to the UK PSF. And I think some people have commented and have put links in there. But I'm going to take the last comment from Sammy in the chat. It's not really a question, it's more of an observation. She says, I think this education very directly aligns to the decolonizing work as well, and can be linked, given current divides, benefits, power imbalances around ESGs, and the link to global north-south divide rooted in colonialism.
Yes, yes, absolutely, yes.
Sorry, he.
Sorry?
No, I used the wrong pronoun.
Oh, right, okay. Yes, absolutely. I think, yeah, it's because we need to think globally. I think that's the issue. I think it's not just colonization. You know, I think we need to think about there are no barriers. There is no west or east. It's anything we do here will have an effect wherever we are in the globe. And as I said before, the pandemic is one of the examples. We were doing things our way in the UK, and all the policies were going on in New Zealand, in other places in the world. But at the end of the day, we were all interlinked. To be able to, you know, fight the virus, we had to work together. And that's such a clear example of how all the SDGs and the globalization, you know, that's how we have to become global citizens. When we think about whatever we do here will have an effect everywhere else, and will have an effect come back to us. So I hope that gives you feedback on your comment.
Yeah, and I think we have time for one more question, comment. Boogie has a question there in the chat. The global south are still trying to catch up with the global north in terms of development. How can how can the necessary changes be enacted there?
Well, I think that's a big question, because we need to probably interrogate, are we really trying to catch up? Do we want to catch up with globalization or industrialization? That's what's creating a lot of problems. And I think probably, personally, I think we need to rethink the way we conduct our lives and how we're going to sustain what we are developing and what we are our development. I think it's a tricky question. It's just one example. I was working in Malawi, and when you see the poverty, you see it's very, very poor country. But when you think about the effects of, you know, for example, from a health point of view, we have so many health-related issues here because of the industrialization that we are facing. Whereas when you see poverty in Africa, but you don't see that kind of effect, I think we are facing amazing challenges. I think we need to rethink the whole way of our finances, our economy, our way of living to be able to save the planet. It's not about, I think poverty, it's we need to rethink the concept of poverty, because we might be very well developed here, but we are driving poverty everywhere. Do we need to go back to basics? That's the question.
Sorry, this has been a fantastic talk, Maria. Sorry, my name is Buge. My name is Professor Pampa, Dean of the OIE at UEL. Fantastic talk. But, you know, I'm African, and I see the exploitation of my country, continued exploitation. I remember the first time I traveled to the eastern part of Nigeria, I saw I think it was Shell or whoever, the oil companies, burning gas. It was just burning.
Absolutely.
I'd never seen that coming from the Midwest. So
Absolutely.
Europe and the Americas have exploited and continue to exploit my continent. Africa, I don't know if people know, we have 2/3 of the natural resources in the world. 2/3. I just came back from Morocco. They have phosphates. It's a very rich country, but it's exploited by companies in the West.
Absolutely.
So how can we? I mean, I understand the need because I want us to continue to have an earth to live in. But how can we say, okay, now these people have exploited and developed themselves, and then the global south are underdeveloped, but they need to stop because we'll damage the climate. Something needs to happen. I just feel very frustrated about the status quo. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts. I completely agree with you. I think, yeah, that's the thinking. They say, well, you've come here, you've exploded us, and you developed yourselves. Now it's time for you to pay what you've done. But my question is, do we need to rethink about the development? We need to be fair, but probably we need to be thinking about how that level of development can be achieved in a sustainable way. But I completely agree with you. I completely share your worries in that area and your feelings. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria, and thank you, everyone. I think that's all we have time for, but really insightful presentation, and I'm sure that people will be in touch as well. So thank you. Just a tiny bit of an announcement, because I know that there's conflicting messages around. We will have a 15-minute break, and then the next sessions will start at 3:30. So you have 5 different sessions to choose from, and hopefully you continue to enjoy the day. But thank you, Maria, and thank you, everyone, and we'll see you in the following links in 15 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa.
Gracias.
Gracias. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Bye.